Hey yogis, welcome to Asana Workshop 3. Today we'll be going over the standing and balancing poses in the Ashtanga primary series. So we'll talk about each pose, what it's strengthening, what it's stretching, some benefits, as well as common mistakes when practicing in your own practice. So we'll go ahead and start with Padottanasana, which is big toe pose. This pose strengthens the thighs while stretching the hamstrings. So it's a forward fold, bound forward fold with your peace sign fingers, which I will demo in just a minute. Has many internal benefits, such as stimulating the livers and your kidneys, improving digestion, as well as relieving headaches and overall stress and anxiety. Common mistakes for this pose are hyperextending the legs and rounding the spine. So let me go ahead and show you. So most students will approach this in the primary series. We take 5 breaths. So we're standing, inhale, and exhale, full. You peace sign bind your big toes. Your feet are at hips distance stance. Feet are parallel to the long edges of your mat. Inhale to lengthen and gaze forward. And then exhale, you use your bicep strength to guide the crown of your head towards your mat and your forehead towards your shins. So my elbows are reaching towards the sides of my mat, not towards my body or towards the front, although that would be pretty uncomfortable. So inhale, length, and exhale, fold and deepen. So common mistakes. A lot of yogis, including myself, can hyperextend their legs if you're a little bit hypermobile here. So if you can hyperextend your legs, you want to give a gentle bend and then engage your quads. So your kneecaps are reaching towards your hips. Your quads are strengthening while your hamstrings are stretching. Keep reaching your tailbone towards the sky, and that'll help deepen the stretch, and you might even need to shift your weight slightly forward into the balls of your feet. Another common mistake is rounding the spine, so yogis will go like this. If this pose isn't accessible to someone in your class or maybe even yourself, you can modify and find some blocks, bring the earth a little closer toward you so that you're really focusing on that stretch in the back side of your legs as well as strengthening the front side. So instead of rounding, again, just lengthening, keeping the spine long so that you can fold to your depth. So the next pose in the primary series is Hastasana, hand under foot pose. Really similar to Padottanasana, except you have a bind. So instead of that peace sign bind, you're now sliding your palms underneath your feet, fingertips facing your ankles, and then your weight is on your wrists, almost like you're giving yourself a wrist massage. So this pose has many benefits, both internal and external. It improves your balance, which it's a little bit of a balance challenge. It improves your posture, your flexibility, similar to Padottanasana. So you're still strengthening the front side of your legs while you're stretching the back side of your legs and low back. It also energizes the body and reduces stress and anxieties while it's energizing the body. So that energizing proponent helps to reduce your body's overall stress. Rounding of the spine is also a common mistake here. So unlike the pose before, this time when the student's fingertips reaches the toes, but the bend is now coming from their wrist instead of their hips. So the weight of the upper body is hanging over the lumbar vertebrae, which can cause your discs to bulge and eventually will result in injury. So we'll go ahead and I'll demo this for you. And we can look at that rounding of the spine as well as hyperextension of the legs that we want to be mindful of. So after we hold the previous pose, Padottanasana, for 5 breaths, we inhale, palms to our hips, and then rise to stand. And then we move into the next pose. So fold, inhale for length, slide your palms underneath your feet, again, fingertips facing my ankles, and then your toes should be able to tickle your wrists. You inhale to length, and then exhale, fold. Elbows are still reaching towards the sides of your space. And similar to the previous pose, you want to shift your weight a little bit forward. You should feel the weight on your wrist. This is going to relieve stress and tension here. And then eventually crown of your head towards your mat. So similar to the previous pose, this pose may or may not be accessible for some of your students or maybe for yourself. It is okay to bend into your knees if you want to focus on your wrists and focus on strengthening your arms and upper body as well. But any modification, any type of forward fold is a modification here, whether that's a regular forward fold, whether it's the previous pose in the series, maybe even ragdoll, whatever your body is asking for in that moment. All right, guys, third pose after those 2 forward folds in the primary series is Utthita Trikonasana, or triangle pose. So this pose has so many physical benefits, stretches and strengthens your thighs, your knees, your ankles, while also stretching your hips, your groin, your hamstrings, your calves, pretty much your entire legs. It's also engaging your abdominals, so it's core strengthening. Your arms are working here because there's not a lot of weight in them, so they're working to just hold still and hold in place. Internally, it stimulates your abdominal organs, like I just said, improves digestion, relieves stress, and even helps relieve symptoms of menopause. So lots of common mistakes as well. Resist the temptation to bend into your front knee so that your fingertips or your palms reach your foot or the floor. That's not important. It can be important, but what's more important is engaging your abdominals. You can always use a block or something to bring the earth closer to you. So really engaging your core and using your leg and core strength, even your arms, to hold your body in position. So let's go ahead and I will demo it for you. If you want to do it with me, you can. So you'll find a little bit shorter stance than Warrior 2. So like a pyramid pose stance. The vinyasa cues: reach your arms towards the sides of your space, inhale, reach forward, and then when you can't reach anymore, exhale, tick-tock your arms to 12 and 6 on a clock. Maybe gaze towards the sky. So as you can see here, I'm not bending into my knee to reach the floor. My leg is straight, my thigh is active here, so my right kneecap is active and engaged, my leg isn't hyperextending. And then I'm guiding my back hips slightly back in space so that my hips are opening, like I'm trying to fit my body in one plane or in between 2 pillars that are really close to me. There's little to no weight in this bottom palm, so my core and my right side obliques are really holding my body here. Spreading my fingertips apart, engaging my arms, and then taking 5 breaths, and then inhale, slowly rise back to stand and release. So right after triangle pose, we move into revolved triangle, or Parivrtta Trikonasana. This pose stretches and strengthens the legs, strengthens the hips, as well as the spine. It opens the chest to improve breathing, relieves mild back pain, stimulates the abdominal organs, and improves your sense of balance. So a lot of the same benefits that we saw in the previous pose, with additional, a little bit more so chest expansion with that gentle twist. Common mistakes: don't allow your head to go past your front leg. So if my right foot is forward and I'm opening towards the right, you don't want to cross over because you'll lose your sense of balance and you might fall out. Also, your back hip, you don't want to shoot it up and forward because that'll guide your femur away from your axis of rotation, which will also cause you to lose your sense of balance and also might strain your spine a little bit in that position. Let's go ahead and check out the pose. So we have the same stance, if not maybe even a little bit shorter than we do in triangle, except this time our back foot isn't at a 90-degree angle. It might be turned slightly in. Take an inhale here and then exhale gently full. In the Ashtanga variation, your left palm, so I'm on my right side, my left palm will find the outside of my right foot. This is pretty inaccessible for a lot of students, so most times we'll guide students to find a block here and place their left palm on a block on the inside of their right foot. Right palm can find your low back or your right hip, and then inhale, exhale, gently turn and gaze towards the right. If that's comfortable and easy, you can find full expression with your left palm on the outside of your right foot. Really grip your mat with your fingertips and then open through your chest. So those common mistakes that I just talked about would be my head really guiding over here towards the right. That's going to cause me to fall towards the right. Same thing with my left hip. If I begin to drop it down and forward, that's going to hurt my low back and also cause me to fall. So this pose is definitely a balance challenge. It requires a lot of leg engagement, so your legs are really active, feet really rooting into your mat, but also your palms. So if I'm with my right foot forward, my left palm really needs to ground, really needs to be stable on my mat for me to open and find that twist and that expansion through my chest. So, since it is a pretty deep hamstring stretch, really guide your students, offer them a block, whatever setting works for them. Really ground their palm into that block and imagine like they're pushing energy into their block or mat and then reaching up towards the sky. So arms are super active here, and that will help you keep your balance as well. So after revolved triangle pose, we find extended side angle pose. This pose has so many benefits, stretching and strengthening the legs, the knees, the ankles. It also stretches the groins, your spine, your waist, and your shoulders. So you're kind of breathing into your full body. It expands your chest and lungs and also stimulates your abdominal organs. So common mistakes: taking the front knee past the ankle so you don't have that 90-degree angle, collapsing the front knee inwards so you're not really working your inner thigh at all, and putting too much weight on the front arm. So instead of engaging your core, you're just collapsing and leaning onto that front thigh. So not only are you not using your abdominals to the extent that you can, but you're also not getting the full benefit in your legs. Also, just kind of losing sight of your back arm, which I will demo, and lifting your back heel off the ground. So let's look at the pose first, and then we'll get more into those mistakes or misalignments. So big stance in your front knee. You bend into your front knee until you find your fullest expression, heel to arch alignment. So my front heel is in line with my back arch. You come in and out, just kind of find your depth, and then extend through your fingertips. Feel that long line of energy through your arms. You'll inhale, reach, and then exhale, your forearm will come to your thigh. And then I like to tell my students to almost like brush their thigh with their forearm. That helps deepen and really bend into your knee so you can find your fullest depth. And then left palm to my left hip. This is so that I can then take a breath and really open through my chest, guiding my left shoulder down. And then I can reach my left fingertips forward. So we'll pause here. This hand kind of likes to go rogue, so a lot of students kind of just lose it back here. I like to imagine a plane of glass from my nose towards the sky, and that guides me to tell me where my arm should be. So once my fingertips reach forward, I keep that in line, but I don't collapse my shoulder inwards, still opening through my chest and guiding that left shoulder down and back. From there, these fingertips can reach towards the mat, and it can be on the inside or the outside of your right foot. It depends on what you're trying to work in your lower body, right? So if my palm is on the inside of my foot, I'm going to work my inner thigh, and that'll give me a point of reference. So my knee will push into my arm, and my arm will push into my knee, and that'll really work my inner thigh. Versus if my palm is on the outside of my foot, and we're pushing there, you can feel that if you're practicing with me. You can feel your outer thigh and almost your outer glute engage as well. So if my palm's on my inner thigh, and then fingertips are reaching up, keeping that shoulder open, reaching, reaching, reaching. Then inhale, rise back to stand, straighten, and release. All right, guys, so next in the series after extended side angle is revolved side angle. So just like in triangle pose, we do triangle and then we twist it. We do the same thing with side angle. So we do 5 breaths in side angle, come out, and then we do revolved side angle. So lots of the same similar benefits to extended side angle, except that this pose increases stamina, as well as its major internal benefits are improving digestion and aiding in elimination. And also has the added benefit of improving your balance. The little twist is challenging and really engages everything to help you work on your balance. Common mistakes are your knee collapsing inwards, as well as your hip shooting out or misaligning your legs. So let's just go ahead and demo and look at the mistakes as we get into it. So similar stance to extended side angle, we're bending into our front knee and our back heel is currently grounded. Reach through my fingertips, inhale here, and then you find your twist. So for a lot of students, this twist is going to be too deep of a twist. So I'm going to go ahead and show you and explain the pose, and then we'll go through some modifications. So your opposite arm, so my right leg is forward, so my left fingertips or palm are going to find my mat, and then my right fingertips will reach forward, again, just like in extended side angle, staying in that plane of my body. So my right arm is not reaching too far to the right or left, it stays in my body. So because this pose is a little bit challenging, a lot of it challenging, the Ashtanga correct alignment is that your back heel is grounded. Let me lift my pant leg. So my back heel is grounded if it's going to be the correct form. But once I start to twist, to keep my heel grounded, my bent knee hip might shoot out. And so my hip is no longer in line. I'm no longer using the full maximum strength of my legs. So you can slightly lift your back heel. And if it's still not accessible, so you can see here, I think you can see that. My back heel is just lifted about an inch. And if it's still too inaccessible for you, you can just find high crescent legs and then work more with your students on some type of prayer twist. And if that's comfortable, then maybe their fingertips find the ground, maybe a block. They can open towards the sky, or they can find full expression. So lots of options here. I usually, when I teach this in a non-Ashtanga class, will start in the Warrior Two stance. And then I'll inhale, reach towards the sky, so my hips are facing forward, but my back foot isn't facing the front. Let me just demo that. So I'm here, almost like a Warrior One stance actually. So I'll inhale, reach up, and then exhale, palms to prayer, twist towards the right. I tell them if that's uncomfortable, if they want to still breathe and stretch into their left hamstring, but it's a little painful here, you can rise into the ball of your foot. That'll focus more on the spine twist than it will the leg activity, and you won't be breathing as deep into your back leg calf and that back side of your leg. But it's all about compromise and finding what works best in your class for that day. After revolved side angle pose, we enter Prasarita Padottanasana, and we have A through D in the Ashtanga series. Each are held for 5 breaths. So this is wide leg forward fold bend, stretches the back of the legs, improves your hip joint flexibility, as well as strengthens the feet. So it's a little bit of balance here, and your feet are really active on your mat. It acts as a semi-inversion, so your head is below your heart when you're inverted, so it is a semi-inversion, lengthens the spine, and also provides rest to the heart. So a couple common mistakes are just rounding the spine here, as holds true for a lot of forward folds. Rushing to touch the floor, so not really taking the time to make your way down to the earth. That is a hamstring strengthener as you lower. Another common mistake is your weight isn't placed evenly over the inner and outer soles, so you might be collapsing inwards, which is going to put strain on your ankles as well as your IT band. And your legs might be hyperextended here. So let's go ahead and look at these variations. I'll face the side so you can see my legs. My feet are parallel or slightly pigeon-toed, and I have a pretty wide stance here. I'll bring my hands to my hips. I'll take an inhale, open my chest forward, and then exhale, lengthen towards the ground where my palms will find my mat. I'll walk my fingertips back in line with my toes. Inhale, gaze forward to lengthen, and then exhale, fold. I'll use my arm strength to guide the crown of my head towards my mat. Eventually, the crown will be in line with my toes, and my elbows are reaching back in space. Once I'm here, so the crown of my head touches my mat pretty easily, you can guide students to shorten their stance so that they're still working on the stretch in the backside of their legs and breathing deeper into their hips. My weight is slightly forward here as I lift my tailbone. And again, I'm not collapsing inwards or outwards into the soles of my feet. So 5 breaths here. And then you gently release, rise back to stand. Inhale, lengthen. And then exhale, fold. Prasarita Padottanasana B. So this one, my palms stay here and the crown of my head is still melting towards my mat. Weight is slightly forward into the balls of my feet. My hamstrings are active and engaged, but my legs aren't hyperextending. 5 breaths, and then slowly come out for variation C. You interlace your palms behind your low back. And if that's comfortable and easy, you want to try and get the heels of your palms to touch. So same entrance as the other two. Inhale to lengthen, and then exhale to fold. Bind will reach towards the ceiling, and then eventually towards the opposite side of your space until your palms touch the earth. So you're breathing into your shoulders. You take 5 breaths here, feet strong and active on your mat. Then inhale, slowly rise. Slip in a little. Palms back, inhale for lengthen, exhale to fold. Variation D, peace sign bind around your big toes. Same entrance, inhale to lengthen, and then exhale to fold. Elbows will reach towards the sides of your space, similar to that standing forward fold where we're bound. So your elbows, you're using your bicep strength to guide the crown of your head towards your mat, and then you take 5 breaths there. So those are all 4 variations. You can do one or all of them, whatever works. A lot of classes will take the time to offer an inversion here, whether that's a headstand, a handstand, maybe you offer all 3 and give the students the option. They'll take whichever that they like. Just really focusing on cueing that hyperextension of the leg, making sure that people aren't locking their legs, and then as well as not rounding through their spine. The next pose in our standing and balancing series is Parsvakonasana, pyramid pose. This pose stretches the hamstrings, the spine, the shoulders, the calves, even the wrists, because we find reverse prayer, so prayer hands behind our back, strengthens the legs, calms the brain. It also stimulates the abdominal organs and improves posture and sense of balance. Last internal benefit is that it improves digestion. So common mistakes are hips out of alignment. So let's go ahead and look at this pose. So a little bit shorter of a stance, just like triangle pose. Front foot parallel with the long side of your mat, back foot is turned inwards. For a lot of students, this reverse prayer won't be an option. So any option, palms can find hips. If reverse prayer is in your practice, palms will find the space behind your back, and you'll try and get your 2 palms to touch like that. You'll take an inhale breath here for length, and then exhale to fold. And you'll pause wherever you begin to, find your depth. Just gonna bring my hands down so I can focus on the hips. So a lot of students, they'll have their hips open toward the sides of their space. So you'll want to guide that back hip down and forward, and you can do that verbally by just, my right foot is forward, so I cue, guide your left hip slightly down and forward until you feel your hips in one line, and you can see my body do that, almost like I'm trying to balance a teacup or something fragile on my low back or sacrum area. And then I'll keep my right leg engaged so that I'm not hyperextending that leg. So my quad is active while I'm breathing space into the back side, the belly of my right hamstring. I'll eventually fold, and I'll reach my chin towards my shin if I'm in full expression here. And then my gaze is down and forward. My core is still active, feet are active on my mat. So focusing really on your students' hips, making sure that they're square towards the front of their mat so that they can breathe into that belly of their hamstring. Lots of options for blocks here. A lot of students will struggle with this pose, so offering 2 blocks so that they can bring the earth closer to them. So it looks like you would inhale to lengthen and exhale to fold about here. For a lot of students, this will be enough. Their core will stay active. They'll really feel that stretch in that front side leg, and then they can fold to wherever feels comfortable for them. All right, guys, so the next pose is Virabhadrasana B, or Warrior 2. So lots of information for this pose for you guys today. It's a deep hip opening pose, so a powerful stretch for the legs, groins, chest even. It increases stamina and helps relieve back pain as well as stimulate healthy digestion. So a couple common mistakes: too short of a stance so that your knee might be projecting outwards over your ankle. A good rule of thumb is to extend your arms and try and line your ankles underneath your wrists. So that'll give you a good enough distance that you'll find your edge in your furthest enough stance. So extending your feet wide and then lining up your front heel to your back arch and then turning your back toes in slightly. Then, instead of feeding all the power into your front thigh, keep pressing strongly through your back heel, and this will keep your back leg active and engaged. Be careful not to drop your front knee in. Keep it reaching in the opposite direction. So if I'm bending into my right knee, I'm reaching that right knee towards the top right corner of my mat. I don't want it projecting outwards, but I really want to feel into my inner right thigh and groin. So there's a cue that I don't particularly love, and it tells us to square our hips to the long side of our mat. So although this is a well-intended cue, it, in my opinion, fails to account for the fact that most of us don't have the skeletal structure to externally rotate our thigh a full 90 degrees at the hip, so we can't physically actually put our pelvis in that position. So when we try to square our hips towards that long side of the mat, we either dump the front of our pelvis forward, so we're creating like low back compression, or we collapse that front knee inwards, so then we're losing that inner thigh and groin stretch. So focus instead on maximizing the range of motion possible for your hips. So once you have bent your front knee at 90 degrees, keep your front knee over your front ankle as you turn your pelvis towards the long side of your mat. So my knee is bent at 90 degrees, and as I begin to turn, once you notice your knee turning, pause and go back so that your knee is aligned over your ankle, and that's your edge. Turning your pelvis will engage your front hips external rotators. So at the same time, so your external rotators are engaged, and at the same time keep pushing into that back heel so your back leg is really strong. And the combination of this external rotation of the front thigh as well as the extension of your back leg creates balance action in the pelvis. So we're not collapsing in, we're not gently rounding, and it's not going to compress the pelvis or your low back, which in turn both strengthens and opens deeply into your hips. Let's go ahead and get a look at it. That was a lot of words for no action. So let's just look into the stance. So as I said, a good rule of thumb is to try and align your ankles underneath your wrists. So mine might go a little bit further because my hips are pretty open, so that's okay for me, but it's pretty close here. And you can see I'm paused. This is pretty much my edge. My knee right now is over my right ankle. I'm reaching my right knee towards the top right corner of my mat, and I can really feel that stretch in my inner right thigh. So as you can tell, my hips are kind of facing about this direction right now. So I'm not totally towards the left side of my mat, and you can see once I do that, my right knee does project inwards. So I'm kind of over exaggerating it right now, but you get the point. So you want to rotate as much as you can, and I do feel that stretch deepen as I begin to rotate, but I'm not forcing my knee to collapse inwards because then I'm compromising the stretch and strengthening in that thigh. So reach through your fingertips, rotate your pelvis towards the left if you're on the right side, and then I'm really keeping my back leg strong. I'm digging my left heel into my mat, and I'm almost feeling like I'm trying to push my feet in opposite directions. I'm trying to split my mat down the center. Reach through your fingertips and then gaze over your front fingertips and breathe 5 breaths there.